Hello, and welcome to episode 5 at Jerks at Work. Today, we're covering the bully. Every company has one of these people, sometimes many. They could be your boss, they could be a coworker, they could be a peer. They're all over the place. I've worked with plenty of them, and we're going to chat about who they are and what to do with them. So let's get right into it. I hope you've enjoyed the series. This, by the way, episode 5, we had 4 great episodes to kick this off. If you haven't seen The Hero, The Ticking Time Bomb, The In-Crowd Leader, or The Low Empathy Leader, go to our channel on LinkedIn or on YouTube. Take a look at it. These are really good. These people exist, and they're jerks. I mean, they literally are jerks at work. And so let's talk a little bit about the bully. You know, these bullies probably learned to do this in a sandbox. I mean, they've been doing it their whole life. They used a tactic to rough somebody up early on and got their way, and they've honed this ability of these learned antisocial tactics, intimidating people, humiliating them, using coercion to control others, and ultimately to get their way. That's who they are. They could do it behind your back. They do it in all sorts of ways. We're going to chat about that. These people are real trouble, especially when they're in a leadership position. And so let's talk about, how do you spot them? How do you know you're dealing with a bully?
Yeah. So, you hit the nail on the head. These people have been bullies all their life. Something happened that caused them to feel like the only way I can succeed is by dominating everybody else. And it's usually because they were dominated by somebody and they had that thought, never again. I'm never going to let that happen again. And so they went into this protective mode. Really, underneath a lot of the bullies, it's just a lot of insecurity.
Yeah, I
For
agree there.
whatever reason, something has happened that made them feel insecure. And so they put on this tough exterior. And we see it a lot happening with people when they're trying to publicly humiliate somebody else, where they're making sure that they have an audience to see how I'm going to put this person in their place. I'm going to make them subject to me. I'm going to force them in front of everyone. I want to make them feel small. And anytime a person feels like they have to make somebody else feel small in order to make themselves bigger or more important or have more power, then you really know that you're dealing with an insecure person who really has no power at all. If they have to steal it from others, if they're trying to make somebody else feel small. And so you'll find them criticizing a lot. They're making those power plays where they're making threats, where they might be subtle about it. And sometimes they might just be downright explicit about it and just demand that you do what they say, or they'll take your milk money.
Yeah. Oh,
They're
yeah, they're
really
bad,
going
these
back
people.
to those old school tactics where they're going to take something from you if you don't do what they tell you to do. Or they have, standards that there's one set of standards for you, but a different set of standards for them. They get to choose when the rules apply to them and when they don't.
Oh, yeah.
You know,
Or, yeah, what rules don't apply? That's a
yeah,
big one for them. Agreed.
yeah, they're always looking for how they can play the system into their own favor and against everybody else. So again, it's always about taking something from you, whether it's through humiliation or those power plays, changing the rules on you so that now you don't know what the rule is. And so they're always working it in their own favor. And they're also doing a whole lot of gaslighting, denying that this is what they're doing. They're shifting the blame. It's always somebody else's fault. These are just some of the common hallmarks of people that are really just bullies.
Oh, yeah. And look, they're really, really good if you get out of line of figuring out a way to punish you. And they won't let you know immediately that they were the ones who punished you on purpose, but they'll tell you at the point that is most favorable to them. Oh, remember that you felt your raise got dinged? Guess what? Do you ever figure out why that happened? Yeah, they're true bullies. They'll talk over other people and dismiss them to belittle them into nothing. And they use these tools really well. So they create fear. And this comes down to getting compliance through intimidation. They've honed these skills over many, many years. And they're very good at taking it right to the limit of getting into real trouble, but avoiding crossing that line. And
Yeah.
so they operate in the shadows a lot of times. They'll deny they did anything, like Terry said. Hey, I didn't, what are you talking about? I didn't do that. You're imagining things. So it's
Yeah.
always you, but never the bully. And
There
that's
are
kind of what this
always
boils down to.
talking over you too, trying to
Yes.
silence you because they want their voice to be the only voice that people hear.
Yep. Yep. Steamroller.
Yep.
Yeah. And then, what do you do to handle these people,
Yeah. So if these are people that are for subordinates, so you have people that are bullying you, document, 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 document what's happening. Don't try to just handle this by yourself without having a large paper trail, because again, this person is going to try to avoid, they're going to try to redirect and say it was not them, that it was something else. But when you can calmly and rationally talk and share and show your proof, then it's hard for them to challenge that. Don't try to fight it by yourself. If you need to go to HR, go to HR. If you need to go to their manager, go to their manager. Don't try to handle it by yourself. Don't try to just suffer in silence. Like,
Yeah.
absolutely don't do that. Preserve your own credibility.
Hmm.
Start to document the things that you have done and the things that the bully has done to you, so that now you can show the clear patterns. And
And
usually,
witnesses are documentation too. So when something
yeah,
egregious happens, go to the people who are the witnesses later and say, hey, you saw what happened, right?
yeah,
And that's a form of
yeah.
documentation.
Get people on your side to not, so it's not just your voice, and don't have a whole lot of emotion in it. I know it can be tough when somebody is bullying you and they're trying to make it seem like you're the problem, but try to keep your emotions out of it, because remember, when that reptilian brain kicks in, we are no good when it comes to rational thought. We're just not wired that way.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
make sure you stay in that place where you're calm, you're able to just accurately reflect exactly what happened, get people on your side that they've witnessed it as well. But usually people know who the bully is in the office. It's really not a secret. It's really not something that you really have to
Right.
prove, because people already know that that person is a bully. Nobody has taken the leadership role of handling the bully. And that's what needs to happen. And so you can do that as a subordinate. If you have a boss that's bullying you, or somebody else that's in a leadership position that's bullying you, you can absolutely handle it. It's better if the leaders handle it, right? So, because they already know. But if you have to do what you need to do to protect your own sanity for another reason as well.
Yeah. Very important. And if you're a coworker, certainly, look, you don't want to be this silent bystander just letting this bully get over on all the people around them, because you rely on these people too. You're a coworker. And, you want to support people, even if it's a small signal, something that you do. Put a name to it if you can. Use neutral language. Hey, listen, that felt a little unnecessarily harsh. Let's lighten up here a bit. I think it's possible to also go into sharing the burden. If escalation is needed, you're a coworker, you don't work for this bully, but you can go together. You can help them because they documented it. You were witnesses. There's safety in numbers when it comes to these things. And sometimes when the bully is getting a little bit aggressive, you can interrupt and change a dynamic. You could change the subject, refocus on different facts, slow down the meeting, make what they're doing a little less severe. And ultimately, you want to model the right behavior. Be the better person. Treat the colleagues with respect. Don't normalize the bully style or play into what they're doing. It's just going to bring the whole place down. No
Yeah.
question.
And then if you're in a leadership position, we talk a lot about this, but you really, as the leader, this is your responsibility to handle the bully. I know you may not like it, it may not be popular,
Yeah.
but this is your job as a leader to handle that bully, because he or she is really destroying your culture. And as the leader, you are the carriers of the culture. And if you allow this bullying to continue, you're saying that this is the kind of culture you want. And I don't think that's what you really want. I think you just don't want to handle it. So in that case, you really do have to treat this as a performance issue, not personality, even though sometimes people just have that bulldozer kind of personality. Don't attack it from a personality perspective. Look at it as a performance issue. There are certain things that we do, certain ways that we treat each other, certain values that we have as a team and as a company. And
Hmm.
that's what you go back to. You go back
Oh,
to those. This is what we do, this is how we treat each other, and protect the team. That is so important. You cannot allow this bully to totally destroy the team, because what you'll find is people will leave. If you don't handle it and they feel like they can't handle it, they will leave, because people won't, they just will not tolerate being bullied. You have to set some explicit behavior standards. No question about it. There are certain things we just do not do. We do not call people out of their name. We do not verbally harass people. There are a whole list of things that you really have to set those ground rules and those standards. We're just not going to treat each other that way. We're not going to talk to each other that way. It's just like in a family with the kids. You have to
yeah.
sit down and you have to set the standards. We are not going to call each other stupid. We're not going to tell each other to shut up. We're just all those
Yeah.
little things that you learned as a kid, those same behaviors you have to use in the workplace. We're
Oh,
not
yeah.
going to
I
yell
think
and
you got to
scream at
define
each other.
norms, Terry. You got to define norms, and that way the
Yes,
norm, you say, we don't do that around here. Our normal
that's
is
right.
this. And so you're not attacking them. You're basically saying the norm is setting the standard here, not
Right.
me.
That's right.
It's
And
very
then
clean way to
when
do it.
when you have to give some feedback, give the feedback, provide that structured feedback. And again, you're going back to the norms. This is how we treat each other around here. This is what we do. We do not do these things. And it just basically takes all the emotion out of it. It takes all of the personality attack out of it. And it basically brings everything back to performance. This is about us having a great performing culture.
Yeah, it's interesting. I was running a large division, a Fortune, 250 company, IT division, and IT business administration. The IT controller, who was really good, was actually partnering with a guy in a procurement organization. I found out together they were bullying this one guy who absolutely negotiated great deals. He worked in IT and infrastructure. He was just super what he did, super nice guy. And it got back to me through the grapevine that they were ganging up on this guy, saying things about him behind his back, really getting to the point where he felt unsafe in the place. And it got back to me. And I had built a great culture. And I dealt directly with the guy in the division, the IT controller, and he was matrix to me in finance. I called in the head of the finance controller that he was also matrix to. Got them both in my office. I tipped off the finance guys so what was going on, and he had HR doing a little investigation. Came back, I was right, and so we confronted this guy together. Told him if was one more incident happened and got back to us, he'd be fired without immediately for cause, and it cleared up immediately.
Yeah.
Never did it again. But you got to deal with this stuff. Out there, and it really happens. And
Yeah.
you got to confront it directly and say, that is unacceptable here. Everybody's got value. We're going to treat people the right way according to these norms and behaviors. We had a very good set of norms. But so anyway, we'll move on here to, what not to do.
Yeah. These things won't resolve themselves on their own. They really won't. You really have to take it, take the bull by the horns, so
Yeah.
to speak, and deal with it. You really do have to deal with it, and sooner rather than later. Because when
Always.
you let things just kind of grow and fester, it just becomes a bigger problem.
They
So,
become emboldened when they get away with it.
yeah, yeah.
That's the
And they
problem.
feel like it's okay.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, when you deal with this, if you're a subordinate, don't confront them in an angry way like the guy in the picture. That is not going to win for you. That is a
No,
losing proposition. You got to go back to what to do. You know, don't argue about the intent instead of the impact. Focus on the business issues at hand. That's always the way to handle this stuff. Work around them as best you can. And, don't over document every minor incident. Keep track of the big things, right? Because that's what's really going to matter. This really long list of very minute things is not going to help your case. It's going to hurt it. You need the big things that really matter. And, go public before going private, meaning get your allies in place so that you have a very, very good story here. Don't go public about it until you got everything lined up.
Yeah. And, again, it's not going to resolve itself. So you can't just look the other way and hope for the best. It's
Yeah.
not going to work out that way. Don't just talk about it. Gossiping is not really going to solve anything either. It may make you feel a little better for a moment, but the situation is not going to be resolved by talking about it and looking the other way. Taking sides is not going to help. Waiting for somebody else to intervene. And then you absolutely don't want to join in with the bully.
Oh my
That's
God,
just
no.
making a bad situation worse. So
Yeah.
definitely don't want to do that.
Yeah. And you don't want to be one of those bosses, who says, oh, look, he's just grumpy. I've seen that too. I've seen them dismiss this behavior because they don't want to do anything about it. They don't want to get involved. And so they'd rather just, attribute it to something. Oh, he's just got that type of personality. It's not going to go away. And hoping it goes away if you're a superior is not going to solve the problem. You got to take direct action. Set standards. And so that you can point to the standards, which is what this slide is really saying. You don't want to just confront them and say, hey, you're being a jerk. You want to be able to point to the standard and say, look, we don't use that type of language here when we're dealing with others. We have norms here. And that's why it's so important that the norms are the things that are controlling what goes on. If you're the boss and they work for you, you've got to own it. Don't kick it to HR and say, hey, this is an HR issue. You could certainly bring them in as an ally. They're always good at gathering some facts and information to support you. But don't protect a star performer because it's going to take the whole team down if they're a bully. Bullies can get things done. Some of them can be effective, but they're doing it in a way that's long-term causing all sorts of damage. So you've really got to deal with the whole situation here. And so what happens? What kind of collateral damage do these people create? Because they do create real damage to the organization. No question about it.
Yeah, there's no doubt that you're experiencing a lot of delays in your projects. You're seeing a lot of turnover, burnout. People are just getting sick a lot. They don't want to come into work. There's not a whole lot of collaboration. People are silent. They're not really working well together. All of those are just signals. You see
Yes.
that loss of psychological safety and declining performance. People are just really tired. That's really the bottom line. They're unhappy. They're seeing some of that reputation damage. When you start to see things like that, these are just clear signals that you have a bully that has not been addressed and that needs to be addressed.
Yep. And in all toxic cultures, we have bullies. You get people engaging in protective behaviors. They don't want to take any action. They don't want to own anything because they might get bullied if it doesn't go perfectly. And so you're going to see people avoiding stuff. They start to withhold information because they know this person might disagree with them, silence them in a meeting. You've got real legal and HR risk. There are lawsuits that these people cause, no doubt about it. They're very damaging, a lot of rework and mistakes. And overall, when you have a culture like this, it's low trust. And that's where the lack of psychological safety and other things come from. So these are very toxic cultures when you have people like this working in them. Now, next week, we're going on to a really interesting personality type, the narcissist. That could be just so annoying. We're here every Wednesday at 3:00. We have another episode go off. So we're moving on to the narcissist, and I hope you could join us next week when this episode comes out at 3:00. Hope to see you there. Take care.
Yes.